also pleased to submit for your consideration the draft order of business as contained in document CD/OD-45/15. If there are no comments on the draft order of business for today, I would like to approve the draft order of business. Approved. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin the year and I assume the new responsibility, I would like to share with all of you my thoughts on CIDI's work for the upcoming semester. I would like to take the opportunity to welcome, of course, the Executive Secretary for Integral Development, Mrs. Sherry Tross, and the outgoing chair of CIDI, Ambassador Neil Parsan, the permanent representative of Trinidad and Tobago, and thank both of you for your committed work and dedication to the mandates and goals of CIDI. It is my honor to serve as chair of CIDI, the ranking political body responsible for ensuring integral development in the OAS. I can assure you that my endeavors, and certainly the delegation of Suriname's endeavors, will be geared towards contributing to the furthering of the all-encompassing work and mandates of CIDI. Ladies and gentlemen, we can all agree that the work of CIDI is indispensable and that it augments to the various efforts of relevant actors to address the structural challenges that our region faces in gradually attaining truly sustainable levels of social, economic, environmental, and political development. These challenges are certainly also related to the enormous social disparities and levels of inequality that still prevail in our hemisphere. CIDI, with its all-encompassing approaches for integral development, underscores that human-centered development deserves to be high on the agenda of this Council. Many of our developmental goals require multidimensional social, economic, and environmental approaches that reinforce links between policies and strategies related to, among others, education, science, technology, health, employment, competitiveness, production, food security, and climate change as we strive to propel all-inclusive human-centered development. In our view, a number of elements are crucial for enabling social justice and social inclusion for development. Some of these are adapting prioritized sectors for development to changing circumstances on the world market, increasing productivity, promoting competitiveness, stimulating technological development and innovation, creating employment opportunities and decent and productive work, while taking into account necessary specialized workforce development, and creating targeted social protection systems for the most disadvantaged groups in our societies. In addition to these areas of focus, during Suriname's chairmanship of CIDI, I propose the following as key elements as well. Advancement of access to inclusive and quality education at all levels, including the design and implementation of policies that will strengthen the teaching profession at all levels through capacity building, the fostering of strategic role of educators in facilitating learning, the access to ICT in education at all levels, particularly as a contributing factor in the Teach the Teacher's approach for advancing accelerated training, and the development of innovative curricula based on national developmental needs. A comprehensive approach will also provide opportunities for marginalized and vulnerable groups for all peoples across the Americas at all levels of society. We believe that with its activities and mandates, CIDI has positioned itself to complement and support the various developmental undertakings in the Americas. To realize the goal of integral development, we must mold 2015 into the year that catalyzes prosperity with equity, the year that takes on the challenge of cooperation in the Americas. The upcoming Summit of the Americas can certainly be instrumental in advancing the lofty efforts of CIDI. In our view, CIDI must advance and forge links between education and human development to raise productivity and competitiveness across sectors and to bolster human capacity alongside social equity and equality. Effective labor force training mechanisms, including the training and development of teachers, as mentioned earlier, will in itself strengthen other processes such as the promotion of science and technology, as well as engineering. The Inter-American Education Agenda can serve as a tool with which we can consolidate these links. In the upcoming months, the proposed CIDI work schedule will comprise, among others, various ministerial meetings on thematic areas of education and science and technology, a meeting of high-level authorities on micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, specialized CIDI meetings on labor market preparation and culture as a key for social inclusion and sustainable growth, and 2 joint PCCD meetings on the plan of action of the social charter and on the food and nutrition situation in the Americas. We are certainly at a crossroad as we commit to the various mandates entrusted to CIDI, and particularly as we recognize the intrinsic link between education, science and technology, labor, productivity, competitiveness, and security, some of our fundamental areas of focus that directly impact other key sectors such as culture, tourism, and environment. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all be encouraged by the fact that recent policies fostering social cohesion and inclusion have helped more than 61 million people escape poverty across the hemisphere. UNDP reports that the Americas have experienced a drop from more than 225 million poor in 2002, to less than 164 million by 2014. We cannot allow inequity and social inclusion to undermine the gains made in improving social cohesion, democracy, multidimensional security, peace, and human development in general. The delegation of Suriname recognizes that broad-based collaboration with all stakeholders at the national, regional, and international level is the most effective way to advance longer-term social economic development for our region, and hence to realize the true developmental potential of our peoples and countries. As we move forward, let it be our mission to develop and advance policies that support dignified living standards, that consolidate efforts to promote social inclusion, that encourage exchanges of best practices among member states, and that improve the conditions needed to optimize success, all the while establishing greater coordination within the OAS and with other organizations such as the IDB, PAHO, ECLAC, and other regional and international organizations. On our journey to sustainable development, CIDI must continue to promote inclusive professional and technical training that support achievements in education, labor, food security, health and culture, including the development of opportunities for skill certification in these sectors. This will in turn facilitate job market access, sectorial development, economic strengthening, and institution building as well. CIDI must also push to develop and strengthen opportunities for improving the availability, access and quality of health services. Similarly, we must continue to promote democracy and dialogue as critical elements of social, economic, and cultural development, bearing in mind that democracy and integral development are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. Within the framework of the Social Charter and the recently negotiated Plan of Action, we therefore must build on the innovative South-South approach, the North-South cooperation mechanism, public-private partnerships, and intersectorial cooperation alongside diversity and gender paradigms to forge a lasting and comprehensive hemispheric development phenomenon. At all times and in all our efforts, we must be guided by our commitment to promote a human-centered developmental agenda that advances the creation of just and equitable societies defined by social justice, social inclusion, and investments in human capital. This is the moment to respond to the needs of the Americas. Now, with the current dialogue on the post-2015 development agenda, it is time to assert leadership and the impact of CIDI and the OAS. Solidifying our partnership for development will allow us to strengthen internal and interregional capacity, optimize functional synergies, and more effectively respond to the needs and priorities of our member states. It is therefore to us to build on the progress already made and to continue on the path efficient for long-term prosperity, peace, security, and integral development across the Americas. Suriname is committed to a solutions-oriented approach regarding the entire social agenda. And myself and the entire delegation of the Republic of Suriname pledges to place particular focus on the impact of climate change on production sectors and overall social economic development in our nations. We reaffirm our commitment to productive labor force development in support of developmental processes that take into account the specific circumstances, needs, and priorities of member states. I invite you all to partner with us and all of CIDI as we move to strengthen and consolidate sustainable development across our hemisphere. I thank you. Now, I would like to move to agenda item 2. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to ensure greater continuity in the work of this council, we have included for the first time last semester's report of this council from our outgoing chair, the Ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago, Ambassador Parsan. I would now like to invite Ambassador Parsan to the head table to present this report. Welcome. Ambassador Parsan, can I offer the floor to you?
Sure. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And good morning and buenos dias to all of you. Good morning. And it's the first time I'm here as outgoing chair for the year, so Happy New Year to all of you. Although I think we are 27 days into the year already, but dear colleagues, you may recall in my address to the Council on July 22nd, 2014, in my capacity as chair of CIDI, it was indicated that the chairmanship of Trinidad and Tobago will focus on specific priority areas that were and are crucial in achieving a sustainable, competitive, diversified socioeconomic environment. In the latter half of 2014, the key areas of CIDI has been the growth of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, innovation and business development, and workforce development. The chairmanship of Trinidad and Tobago included meetings with the chairs of the committees and working groups of CIDI. In order to coordinate effectively the work of the Council, a meeting was held on July 25th, 2014, with the Executive Secretary of CIDI and the chairs of 2 CIDI committees and the working group, namely the Committee on Migration, the Committee on Partnership for Development of Policies, and the working group to strengthen CIDI. The meeting afforded an opportunity to each of the chairs to define their scope of work for the period under review. On December 4th, 2014, I again met with the Executive Secretary of CIDI and the chairs of the working group to strengthen CIDI, the working group on the draft plan of action of the social charter, the working group to review mandates on integral development, and the vice chair of the Committee on Partnerships for Development Policies. The purpose of the meeting was to review the work undertaken by the respective committees and working groups, given the mandates entrusted to them by the General Assembly for follow-up and implementation of the resolutions adopted at the 43rd and 44th regular sessions of the General Assembly. As delegations would recall, some of these included Declaration of Asuncion of the 44th regular session of the OAS General Assembly, Development and Social Inclusion, advancing hemispheric initiatives on integral development, strengthening the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, a policy dialogue and partnership for development cooperation. It also included climate change in the context of sustainable development in the hemisphere, sustainable and equitable cities and communities in the Americas. And in terms of both councils, both the Permanent Council and CIDI, the mandates included drafting of the plan of action of the Social Charter of the Americas and the follow-up and implementation of the Declaration of Cochabamba on food security with sovereignty in the Americas. Also, we had meetings with CIDI during Trinidad and Tobago's chairmanship included. There was one special meeting of CIDI held on July 22nd, 2014, which involved a presentation by the Minister of Culture of Haiti on the 6th Inter-American Meeting of Ministers of Culture and Highest Appropriate Authorities, held later in August 2014 in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. One joint meeting of the Permanent Council and CIDI was held on July 23rd, 2014, which focused on the development of information and communications technologies in the region. The Minister of Information and Communication Technologies of Colombia was the featured speaker at this meeting. 5 regular meetings of Haiti, of CIDI, were held on the following dates: July 22nd, September 9th, October 3rd, October 28th, and November 24th. Our September 9th regular meeting informed on the Chair's proposal for strengthening the development pillar as per the General Assembly mandates. Of significance was the presentation of CIDI's work plan for 2014-2015, as well as presentations of draft resolutions for convening of meetings related to science and technology and education. In keeping with the Chair's intention to focus on thematic areas of relevance to the development agenda of the region, the regular meeting on October 3rd, 2014 focused on labor, business, and workforce development, with notable presenters being the Minister of Labor and Small and Micro Enterprise Development of Trinidad and Tobago, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Regional Affairs at the United States Department of Commerce, the Director of the National Entrepreneurship Institute of Mexico, and the National Coordinator on Technological Linkages of the National Institute of Agriculture Technology of Argentina. With regard to the issue of sustainable development in our hemisphere and efforts to bring greater attention to the work being undertaken by CIDI and the Inter-American Committee on Sustainable Development, The regular meeting of October 28th focused on energy sustainability in the Americas in the context of the water-energy nexus. As such, presenters from the region included the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago, the Manager of Hydrometeorology of the ETESA of Panama, and the Senior Policy Analyst at the Center for the New Energy Economy and the Executive Director of the U.S. Presidential Climate Action Project of the United States. In keeping with the mandate on sustainable and equitable cities and communities in the Americas, the regular meeting of November 24th focused on sustainable cities and risk mitigation. This council benefited from the perspectives shared by the Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization on the topic of sustainable tourism. Member states also benefited from the informative presentations on sustainable cities and risk management by the Chief of Plans and Programs of the Valparaiso region at the Ministry of Housing and Urbanism in Chile, the Principal Specialist of Urban Development at the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Vice President of Research at the U.S. Green Building Council. I had hoped that our chairmanship could have concluded with a focus on public-private partnerships for economic growth and inclusive development with an emphasis on youth and women. I am pleased to learn that these topical issues of importance to our region may be considered under the present chair. Thank you, Chair. We also had ministerial and committee meetings of CIDI, which included the work program for the period July to December 2014, which involved, among other things, ministerial meetings as well as committee meetings of CIDI on the thematic areas of culture, tourism, competitiveness, education, and sustainable development. These were, firstly, the 6th Inter-American Meeting of Ministers of Culture and Highest Appropriate Authorities held in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, from the period August 12th and 13th, 2014, at which the Declaration of Port-au-Prince on cultural interdependence in the context of globalization was adopted. It also included the 22nd Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism, held in Bridgetown, Barbados, from the period September 3rd to September 4th, 2014, at which the Declaration of Bridgetown on Tourism Competitiveness and Sustainability in the Americas was indeed adopted. We also had the 8th Americas Competitiveness Forum held in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago from October 8th to October 10th, 2014, on the theme, The Human Imagination at Work, Driving Competitiveness, Powering Innovation. There was also the 6th regular meeting of the Inter-American Committee on Education, held at the OAS headquarters from October 14th to 15th, 2014. And finally, the Inter-American Committee on Sustainable Development, held at the OAS headquarters from October 22nd to 23rd, 2014. As chair of CIDI, I had the privilege of participating in all of the above meetings, which allowed me an opportunity to appreciate the linkages between the dialogues in these specific sectoral areas with the larger and more comprehensive discussions which were undertaken at our regular CIDI meetings. As regards the elections to committees and working groups, procedurally, the member states considered and supported the election of the chairs of the permanent committees of CIDI and of the working groups during this period. These included the Committee on Migration Issues, the Committee on Partnership for Development Policies, the CIDI Working Group to strengthen CIDI and its organs, and the Ad hoc CIDI Working Group to review mandates on integral development. Delegations also approved the election of members of the committees of the Capital Fund for the OAS Scholarship and Training Programs and the installation of the joint working group of the Permanent Council and CIDI on the draft plan of action of the Social Charter of the Americas and its chair. To the representatives of Guatemala, Colombia, Peru, Belize, and my colleague ambassador from Dominica, may I take this opportunity to thank you for your service, commitment, and time in bearing the responsibility of chairing these committees and working groups. It was indeed an absolute pleasure to meet and work with all of you, and I am assured that the work under your respective tenures would engender positive gains for this council and its membership, and indeed the hemispheric citizenry. Madam Chair, this year we'll see the convening of several ministerial meetings involving the thematic areas of science and technology, tourism, labor, education, sustainable development, and competitiveness. It means that a lot of work which the Council undertakes for the current period will be geared toward the realization of a robust agenda under your stewardship. I am confident that your tenure will successively promote and guide the development agenda of our region, and that you will steer the work of this Council in collaboration with the Executive Secretary and her staff toward concrete outcomes in the coming months. On this point, I wish to state my absolute pleasure. Let me repeat that, my absolute pleasure. Let me repeat that, my absolute pleasure in working with Ms. Truss and her very dear staff at CIDI. What began as initial discussions and consultations turned into a truly rewarding experience for myself and my own staff at the mission. And let me also say thank you very much to my staff. They are my pillars, they are my platform, they are my bedrock, and thank you, thank you, thank you. My tenure as chair of CIDI was made that much easier by the professionalism, timeliness of response, commitment, and experience of staffers at CIDI, and in my own discussions with the Executive Secretary, Ms. Truss, who offered and proffered on many occasions her perspective, thoughts, and clarity on the way forward, including carving a space, or much greater space, I would say, for CIDI at the OAS. And Ms. Truss, on a personal note, let me say, you know, as a diplomat, diplomats have three characteristics: passion, purpose, and perspective, and you have all three. Multiply by 10. Thank you. Colleagues, I have tried to be as comprehensive as I can, and I hope that Trinidad and Tobago's chairmanship of this council resulted in some gains, even if only incremental at this stage. It was certainly an opportunity for me to introduce specific topical issues in our development agenda as we work toward a common goal to achieve integral, equitable, and sustainable social, economic development for our hemisphere. Madam Chair, I thank you for the opportunity to do this report, and I wish you all success under your chairmanship. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Parson. I would like to ask you to please be seated at the head table, because you will have another item in a little bit. Thank you, Ambassador Parson, for your elaborate report, and especially for your tireless efforts to bring to the attention of this council issues of relevance to all our member states. We can all agree that during your tenure, you contributed immensely to the strengthening of CIDI. Your active participation in the various ministerial meetings, as well as in numerous OAS-sponsored events in the area of development and cooperation, has not only brought the sectoral dialogues closer to the council, but it has also highlighted the synergies and complementarities of the various topics and the processes related hereto. All of this while promoting the work of the OAS and its contributions to our countries. At this moment, I would like to offer the floor to delegations that may wish to comment on Ambassador Parsons' report. And there are a couple. So I would like to offer the floor first to the delegation of Peru.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Deseo, en nombre de mi delegación, agradecer la completa y muy detallada muy completo y detallado informe que nos ha presentado el embajador Parsons sobre el 8º Foro de competitividad de las Américas. Es un tema al que mi país le atribuye la mayor importancia, está en la base de cualquier iniciativa de desarrollo que nuestros países quieran emprender. Es una condición indispensable para hacer el uso más eficiente de los recursos que tienen nuestros países y está también en una forma transversal en los esfuerzos de inclusión social y desarrollo que llevamos adelante. Estamos seguros que este encuentro ha generado muchas líneas de trabajo que mi país seguirá con gran interés y estará muy interesado en incorporar y trabajar codo a codo en esos esfuerzos, y además porque representa un estímulo a los trabajos y un enfoque necesario a los trabajos que tenemos que llevar acá en el marco de la OEA, concretamente en el CIDI. Así que nuevamente muchas gracias, embajador Parsan, por su presentación.
Thank you. Delegation of Peru, I would now like to offer the floor to Belize. Delegation of Belize.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to all. Just to thank Ambassador Parson for his report of the last 6 months of his chairmanship of CIDI. I think without a doubt that was a chairmanship of action, of deliverables, of concrete and tangible outcomes. And I think that speaks a lot to your workmanship and your drive and your efforts to make things happen. From the moment you took or you assumed chairmanship of this commission, you detailed your plan of action during your tenure, and I think without a doubt you were able to accomplish a lot of what you wanted to do, and that has certainly pushed CIDI's agenda forward and can only bring greater things to this commission, and we owe a lot to you and your staff for all the work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Belize. Ecuador, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Muy buenos días con todos. En nombre de la Delegación del Ecuador quisiéramos agradecer el informe rendido por el embajador Neil Parson. En particular quisiéramos agradecer por toda la labor emprendida, por su contribución a los trabajos de este Consejo y por su proactividad y liderazgo. Nosotros felicitamos esta labor y mantenemos nuestra posición de apoyo a los trabajos desempeñados por el CIDI, Presidenta. Muy amable.
Thank you. St. Kitts and Nevis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis would like to thank and congratulate Ambassador Parson, his team, and CIDI for his excellent leadership, and for bringing to this body a very innovative and topical agenda. The topics were very informative and very relevant to the development of our states, and so therefore we thank you for the drive you gave us and the food for thought for implementation in our respective states. Thank you.
Thank you, delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Can I offer the floor now to Argentina?
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta, y muy buenos días a todos. En primer lugar, quiero agradecer el informe que presentó el embajador Parson y los trabajos que llevó a cabo durante el semestre pasado, y destacar dos costumbres que me gustaría ver replicadas en las próximas presidencias del CIDI, que fueron la elaboración del calendario de reuniones con estipulación ya de los temas, por lo menos que en un principio serían tratados en cada una de las reuniones mensuales, lo que ayuda a que nosotros comuniquemos a nuestras capitales y tengamos una participación más activa y más informada en cada una de esas reuniones. Y por otra parte, las reuniones que mantuvo con los presidentes de cada uno de los grupos de trabajo, tanto al inicio como al final de su presidencia, que considero que ayudan a coordinar los trabajos y a que todos estén mínimamente al tanto de qué está pasando en el resto de los grupos de trabajo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. I wish to offer the floor now to the delegation of Guatemala.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Buenos días a todos. Quiero aprovechar mi intervención para agradecerle al embajador Parán por la presentación de su informe. Señor presidente, desde el 2009, cada uno de los foros de competitividad de las Américas han dejado su huella en el espíritu emprendedor del hemisferio. El año pasado, en Trinidad y Tobago, a quienes felicitamos nuevamente por su excelente gestión, logramos trazar, explorar y redescubrir aquella capacidad humana que apela a la innovación, impulsa la creatividad y potencializa el crecimiento y la imaginación. Guiados por el Pacto de Competitividad del Gobierno de Guatemala, el pasado mes de octubre de 2014, recibimos con beneplácito, honor y gran entusiasmo la presidencia pro tempore de la Red Interamericana de Competitividad para el 2014-2015. En esa oportunidad, y quiero quizás ahora expresar que Guatemala ya presentó un plan de trabajo para la REAC en el 2015, el cual ya se encuentra distribuido, y entre las obligaciones, evidentemente, de ese plan de trabajo, le corresponde a Guatemala organizar el 9º Foro de Competitividad de las Américas, y para ello hemos escogido el tema Confianza, la clave para las Américas, el cual creemos cumplirá y superará nuestras expectativas. Hoy en día, señora presidenta, los mercados globales están más entrelazados y son más impredecibles que nunca. Las iniciativas regionales deben de fortalecerse para brindar soluciones y cooperación eficaz, con el fin de hacer frente a los retos y a los nuevos ritmos de fluctuación financiera. Guatemala propone una estrategia que nutre a las instituciones y sea fomentada bajo pilares de confianza. Para el 9º Foro de Competitividad de las Américas, que se realizará en Guatemala, me permito citar lo expresado ya por el director del Programa Nacional de Competitividad de Guatemala. Pues el tema seleccionado, Confianza, la clave de las Américas, propondremos temas relevantes para los formuladores de políticas públicas, para inversionistas, para ciudadanos, y avanzaremos en acciones para mejorar nuestras instituciones, para que sirvan a las necesidades de los agentes económicos en los diversos sectores y niveles, ya sean multinacionales, pequeñas o medianas empresas. Buscaremos ampliar las discusiones sobre competitividad y compromiso. Principalmente analizaremos el potencial que tienen las Américas para acelerar su propia competitividad, lo que permitirá que el nivel de competitividad del hemisferio se eleve. En otras palabras, señora presidenta, ningún proyecto despegará de no ser por la estabilidad y confianza indispensable que el inversionista debe tener en el país que invierte y en las instituciones públicas nacionales que garantizan estas inversiones. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. The floor is now offered to the delegation of the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States wishes to thank Ambassador Parsan for his leadership of CIDI during the time that he was chair. He brought passion, energy, and innovation during his entire tenure, which did a lot for CIDI's issues, to raise the level of CIDI's issues in the eyes of many delegations. His dynamic leadership ensured also that we kept engaged in issues of mutual interest to member states, such as sustainable development at the local and municipal level. But he also brought new topics that we had not discussed before, particularly the nexus of water and energy, and the importance that it has for sustainable development. Ambassador, your energy is sometimes infectious, and sometimes we wonder how we're going to keep up with you. But we think that this was a particularly productive period, and we enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I would like to offer the floor now to the delegation of Suriname.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. The delegation of Suriname would like to take this opportunity to join with other delegations in thanking you and congratulating you, Ambassador Parsan, for your chairmanship and the stewardship of the CIDI that you've had for the last 6 months. And we would also like to thank you for bringing to the attention of member states the innovative and very relevant topics on the development agenda to the member states of this, of this organization. Thank you very much.
The delegation of Peru has requested for the floor. Please go ahead.
Sí, Presidenta, yo quiero excusarme con el embajador Parsán porque yo hice en mi entusiasmo y le confieso que ese entusiasmo venía por dos cosas. Primero, porque yo después de mucho tiempo me presento nuevamente en el CIDI. Fue la primera comisión que yo seguí. Tuve el encargo de mi delegación cuando llegué a Washington hace 10 años. Y la verdad que para mí es muy grato reencontrar a los amigos de la Secretaría, algunos colegas que desde esa época llevan el tema y en mi entusiasmo, además por el profesionalismo con el que usted lleva siempre los encargos que tiene, embajador Parsán, pues me adelanté al punto y me referí al foro de competitividad cuando usted estaba dando el informe sobre el CIDI. Me quiero excusar, ciertamente todas los informes y referencias que hemos tenido de nuestro colega que lleva el tema han apuntado al dinamismo y al liderazgo que usted ha desplegado en sus trabajos frente al CIDI y debí transmitirlo en ese momento, pero me adelanté al foro de competitividad que entiendo también ha sido por los informes que nosotros recibimos también seguido con ese mismo liderazgo, impulso y profesionalismo que lo caracteriza. Quería hacer esa pequeña digresión y disculparme con la sala. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Well, I would like to thank all the delegations for their very positive comments and their contributions, and Ambassador Parsán. On behalf of the Council, I would also like to publicly acknowledge your leadership as CIDI Chair, and thank you as well for the valuable and very innovative contributions that you made to the Council and for the work that you carried out in the area of development. This Council and I, as a CIDI Chair, look forward to your continued participation and support in our discussions and our events. Before I continue, I would like to invite all the delegations to join me in recognizing the excellent work that Ambassador Parsán has done through his chairmanship, and I would like to invite all of you to give him a round of applause. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to complement Ambassador Parsán's report, I would now like to offer the floor to the Executive Secretary for Integral Development, Mrs. Sherry Truss. Ms. Truss, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And let me start off by saying that I'm very much looking forward to working with you over the course of these next 6 months. And I'm pleased to have had the opportunity to meet with you already a couple of times to talk about how we might want to take this council. Secondly, I want to join with all of you, really, in giving a heartfelt thank you to Ambassador Parsán for his chairmanship of this council over the last 6 months. I think everybody around the table got it right when you talked about his leadership, his innovative ideas, and the energy. He energized the council, he energized the CIDI, but really I think that kind of leadership is really important in helping us to focus on what it is that we can do and moving forward in a very focused manner to achieve those objectives that we set forth. Thirdly, I'd like to thank all of the committee and working group chairs who we've worked with over the course of this past year, as well as all delegations, because everything that we do within the context of CIDI and CIDI, it's a joint effort. It's something that we do as a team. And as I begin talking a little bit about what we've accomplished over the course of the last year, I'm not going to mention all of the things that Ambassador Parsán did because he, as chair of CIDI, really is the one to go into that, but I'm going to talk about it from the Secretariat perspective. And I will start off by saying that, frankly, if success is measured by the capacity to achieve, despite the profundity and breadth of challenges, then CIDI had a stellar year. all of us, staff as well as delegations, were responsible for bringing through all of the different initiatives that we had and making sure that they came to successful outcomes. And so there's going to be a longer report. It's about 15 pages that we're going to distribute, but I'm just going to go through very quickly 10 quick points that I want to highlight. And the first really has to do with policy dialogue. And I believe that several important policy dialogue and processes that move forward our common development priorities were successfully completed with the support of CIDI in 2014. These include, of course, the completion of the Plan of Action of Social Charter, the implementation of 5 meetings of ministers and higher authorities in culture, tourism, ports, telecommunications, and competitiveness, and advancement of the work of CIDI and its organs under the leadership of Ambassadors Parry and Passan. But in addition to the important policy dialogues among high authorities, the Secretariat also began working with countries in preparing some of our ministerial processes for 2015, whether it's education in Panama in February, science and technology, Guatemala, March, MSMEs here in Washington in April, tourism in September in Peru, and sustainable development in Honduras in October, and of course labor in Mexico in November. But we also had some other forward-looking key initiatives, which included the review of the working group to strengthen CIDI, of the periodicity of ministerial meetings, as we try to better facilitate implementation of mandates and improve the effectiveness of these sectoral encounters. We also had the launch of the consultation process to create a new 5-year Inter-American program for sustainable development, which, when finalized in 2015, we hope is expected to be aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The third thing I wish to highlight is that there was demonstrable progress in achieving more seamless integration between ministerial processes and the CIDI, and Ambassador Passan referred to that. Because for the first time, we had the sitting chair of CIDI consistently invited to have substantive participation in all ministerial level meetings and given the opportunity to engage directly with sectoral authorities, which had the happy outcome of providing an important policy bridge between this council and the various ministerial meetings. And we had a chair that sees this with gusto and took part actively in all aspects of the ministerial meetings. But also, furthering that seamlessness and integration was that this past year, we had host country chairs of ministerial meetings also report to this council on the outcomes of those meetings. So what happened in country X, which hosted a particular ministerial, always came home to this council, which is what's responsible for the follow-up. Fourth, we made significant advances, I think, in making direct links between those policy discussions and programmatic action, and to introduce more intersectoral dialogue to capitalize on the OIS's unique all-of-government structure. And you can see that, for example, with some of the follow-up activities after each of the ministerials, and I'll refer to a couple of them later. The fifth is that the Secretariat leveraged very successfully Partnerships for Development Cooperation, Cooperación Solidaria, as we say, and solidified the positioning of the OIS as an effective hub for triangular cooperation. Indeed, 2014 saw amazing growth in country-to-country technical cooperation and exchange programs using the various cooperation mechanisms of the OIS, whether it was the REAC for competitiveness, REAL for labor, the ISPN for social protection, and so on. Sixth, CIDI achieved measurable success in reinforcing synergies within and across subject areas and departments. And more than any other area of the General Secretariat, CIDI was proactive in reaching out to other entities within the OIS, including the SIM, the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, the Young America's Business Trust, and the Pan American Development Foundation, accomplishments which are consistent with recommendations in the strategic vision exercise of member states. Seventh, CIDI programs had a demonstrable impact, which we were able to show because of improvements in data capture, and a dedicated communication team which regularly communicates program highlights to delegations and to a broader constituency. Eighth, we improved our contribution to the analytical body of work on development topics in the Americas, with CIDI experts publishing over a dozen articles, book chapters, and other reference works during 2014 on issues of inequality, social protection, creative industries, competitiveness, and disaster risk reduction. Indeed, as many of you know, the Signs of Competitiveness report in the Americas, which benefits from input from government competitiveness authorities, private sector and academic partners, and multilateral institutions, is now in its third edition and has become the go-to reference work for studying competitiveness in our region. Ninth, budgetarily, CIDI continued to be a net contributor to the organization, leveraging regular funds to mobilize additional funding to support programs that countries identify as priority. And through that leveraging of resources, we were able to generate around $1 million in direct cost recovery that was shared throughout the organization to support other programs. 10th, CIDI staff, and I cannot say enough about the CIDI staff. They found creative ways to stretch themselves and existing resources above and beyond in order to deliver value programs to our member states. And I want to take a pause right here because we have several of them in the room today, and I'd like you to stand so we can acknowledge them. CIDI staff, please. Thank you all. I mean, it's a great team, and it's an honor for me to work with them every day. But I think in 2014, CIDI's work was perhaps best characterized by its emphasis on partnerships for development and on building institutional and human capacity, as we really honed in on what we do best and on finding the most effective ways to support inclusive and sustainable development. Virtually all CIDI programs benefited from collaboration with partners on the ground, other multilateral institutions, the private sector, academia, etc. But this had the effect of really expanding our reach and widening the impact of OAS development programs. And where possible, those programs were multi-country, which again responds to a recommendation of member states over the last couple of years. And so I'll just describe for you a few examples. I'm not going to go into detail. You'll get the full report. And the first few that I'll mention revolve around powering sustainability. We, of course, had built the ethanol plant in Honduras, which everybody knows, which we're able to bring in on time and under budget. And so now Honduras has a functioning ethanol plant. But how were we able to do this? This, again, was a partnership. And this is a successful outcome of the OAS working with the national government of Honduras, working the Universidad Nacional Agrícola de Honduras, as well as benefiting from the US-Brazil Biofuels Partnership Agreement, and bringing all those partners together to have really what is a very impressive outcome. And we're looking forward to doing something similar in 2015 in El Salvador. In Central America and the Caribbean, we had 10 countries benefiting from the Sustainable Communities Initiative. This is an initiative that I believe has tremendous growth potential. We seed funding and provide technical advice to help communities develop innovative solutions to the challenges that they face resulting from urbanization, and that's the key. Getting communities to be the owners and the producers of their own solutions. And so rather than having a top-down approach, what we're helping to do is build a bottom-up approach where the communities tap into the capacities, the expertise, the experiences that already reside there, and just harness that to be able to find the solutions. And those programs we did, that we started, already some of them are actually scaling up, having now gained the additional expertise, the additional experience, they've been able to go out and leverage additional funding to do major activities. And this is something that we've done in partnership with the U.S. Department of State and civil society organizations in the 2 sub-regions. In the area of sustainable growth as well, we've also continued to reach out for citizen participation. And one of the things that this past year we were able to do was working with El Salvador, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and the Dominican Republic, support those countries in developing an inter-American strategy for public participation in decision-making for sustainable development, and engaging civil society in those consultations and dialogues and processes. And now each of those countries have manuals that we worked on with them that can facilitate civil society engagement in these activities. We also had similar levels of success investing in education for sustainable and inclusive growth. CIDI grew its network of partnerships for education to more than 730 higher education institutions in this hemisphere, but also in Europe and Asia. And this has further solidified education and human development programs, increased opportunity, and really helped to democratize access to quality education for citizens of the Americas to pursue undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate studies. Of that, 2,566 scholarships were awarded in 2014 for students to pursue studies in Brazil, Mexico, Belgium, the United States, Argentina, Barbados, Canada, Chile, China, Colombia, Costa Rica, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Italy, Jamaica, the Netherlands, Panama, Peru, Spain, and Trinidad and Tobago. And I called all of these out because it's important. I want to give you a sense of the scope of possibility and opportunities that are out there. And this has all come about as a result of OIS staff in our Department of Education working very diligently to try to establish these partnerships that can create opportunities for our students of any age throughout the Americas who want to find opportunities for technical, vocational, and academic training. I'd like to mention very specifically, because I think these 3 programs are amazing. Last year, we awarded, Brazil, 445 scholarships for studies starting in early 2015. This is the Coimbra Group partnership that we have. And this year, for the first time, we had the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, join us in the selection process to help select some students for medical training. This is the first time we've done that. So another instance of bringing in another member of the Inter-American family. With Mexico, the Mexican Agency of International Cooperation for Development, as well as CONACYT, 272 scholarships for specialization courses at the master's and doctoral level. And we signed last year, and that has now gone into effect, is underway, and studies will begin in spring of this year. We have 300 scholarships from Belgium for doctoral research in educational sciences, engineering, and public health. And this is something that we certainly hope that students throughout the Americas will take advantage of. And then, of course, we had a lot of advances in innovation in education. We have the Inter-American Teacher Education Network, which has now grown to a community of practice of about 20,000 teachers, which is very impressive. This is something that's only 2 years old. Last year, we had some 90,000 policymakers, educators, and students participate online or on-site in virtual Educa programs in Trinidad and Tobago in May, and in Peru in June. And of course, the Educational Portal of the Americas, which we know has been there for a long time, training over 3,000 citizens in 52 online distance education courses for professional development and vocational training. And these courses are in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Important to mention also is that these courses are designed and implemented also in partnership. They're done in partnership with UNESCO, the Inter-American Development Bank, the United Nations Development Program, the Pan American Health Organization, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation and Agriculture, Intel, the company, the Pan American Development Foundation, and Flaxo, Chile. again underscoring that much of what we do is done in partnership. It's built in, it's integrated, it's mainstreamed, it's what we do, it's how we work. In terms of advocating for social inclusion and decent work, we continue to treat in this issue as a cross-cutting theme in 2014, and the Inter-American Social Protection Network facilitated 7 multilateral, bilateral program exchanges and study tours with professionals to strengthen the capacities of social protection ministries and agencies. The Inter-American Social Protection Network has now been around for 5 years. I think some of you probably saw the publication, 5 years of exchanging experiences and expanding opportunities, as well as a new publication on multidimensional poverty indexes, which, as you know, are an effective and innovative poverty measurement tool that just doesn't focus on income, but incorporates other elements such as education, health, housing conditions, and so on. We know about the diploma courses. That's going very well. We have over 60 public sector officials from 23 countries who've now graduated with diplomas in social protection, and we have ongoing work with the RIAL. In terms of promoting economic growth, competitiveness, and innovation, I'd like to mention 4, maybe 5 things. Tourism, I mentioned for one thing, the follow-up, because we've been talking about how we integrate ministerials with what happens next. Coming out of the Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism in Barbados, which was about tourism competitiveness and sustainability, we made the link with another initiative that was launched in 2014, the Sustainable Destinations Alliance of the Americas. And at the Ministerial of Tourism, we had the announcement of the first 7 destination partners in the Americas, in the Caribbean and Central America, that will receive grants to safeguard their natural and cultural assets, to enhance the lives of communities and secure vibrant regional economies. And those 7 countries are Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Dominica, Honduras, Jamaica, and Nicaragua. And we're doing this in partnership with several organizations, as well as Royal Caribbean. And the United States is supporting. At the 8th America's Competitiveness Forum in Trinidad and Tobago, which Ambassador Parsan spoke about, which was an absolutely spectacular event, we've also had some follow-up and some outcomes. Because, of course, that is always an opportunity to bring together partners from not just the Americas, but from around the world. And so, a little later in the program, we're going to hear from, I think, Cesar Parga, who will talk about what's next post-ACF. But we see that Guatemala, as the next host country, is also going to pick up on the thread from Trinidad and Tobago and continue with that through their meeting, which is going to be in October of this year. We saw some amazing innovation exchanges in 2014, 2 of which I'll mention. One was in the United States, one was in Mexico. And these innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges really brought together private sector people, government officials, university officials, and it was an opportunity to observe, whether it was going to an automotive plant or going to an agro-industrial facility or going to some other kind of technological plant. It was an opportunity to observe and to learn from experiences in practice and see how those practices and how those realities can be converted to be applicable to national context. And I think we've seen and heard certainly from the participants in these innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges is that they would like to do more of these. And participants actually have indicated some of the countries where they'd like to go to do these. I'm hoping that we're going to get some volunteers from our countries here represented, because participants indicated that they'd like to do some exchanges in Canada, in Chile, in Colombia, in Peru, and in Central America and others. I mean, there was a long list, but these were at the top. So I'm certainly hoping that over the course of the next year, the next couple of years, that these countries will also offer to do innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges. The meeting of ministers of culture and high authorities, that also underscored the linkages between culture and other economic sectors. We have a publication on creative industries that we've shared with you. But one of the conclusions of the policy dialogue among government officials and subject matter experts was that in order to design appropriate policies and programs, more should be done to capture data, develop indicators, and conduct impact assessments. And that's one of the areas that CIDI is going to be focusing on in terms of the culture area. And I'd like to mention what might seem to some a sleeper area that you may not have heard much about in the last several years, but you will be hearing a lot about. And that is the Inter-American Committee on Ports, which frankly, I think for a long time had been somewhat dormant. And we now have an Inter-American Committee on Ports, which is really quite reinvigorated. And for this, I want to give credit to the chief of that secretariat, Jorge Duran, who's here. Because what we've seen, since the plan of action of Cartagena was adopted, and that goes till 2016, countries have really become much more vested and invested in working with the CIP. They were able to attract new dues-paying members from the private sector, so they're actually bringing in money, which is good. But those partnerships have also led to some significant programs. A public awareness program, for example, one called Save the Seas, which we're doing with the North American Marine Environment Protection Association, but also training programs, and we've done these in Spain, in France, in the United States. And all of these are an outgrowth of really what is a reinvigorated Inter-American Committee. And they also have commissioned a study on intermodal maritime and road transport as a best practice, bringing together the key issues of trade, logistics, economic growth. And then to wrap, I want to just mention briefly some of the areas of inter-secretariat cooperation, that is between CIDI and other areas of the General Secretariat, because we sort of mentioned them in passing, and some of you know them pretty intimately, but there's a lot happening. And I was pleased that Ambassador Parsan mentioned in his remarks just now that one of the things that he would have liked to put more emphasis on is the relationship with youth and women. And that is certainly something, as we've looked at intersecretariat cooperation, that we've been focusing on. And as you know, with the Inter-American Commission of Women, with which we have a really strong collaboration, we have two very important programs that we're doing. One is on the participatory gender assessment, which we've now done with over 400 professionals in Uruguay, Paraguay, and Guatemala. And the idea behind that is to look at how gender gaps or inequalities can impact a sector's activities, and then look for opportunities to mainstream gender or gender equality in public policies and programs. And the other one is a gender participatory audit, which we've now done in Barbados, El Salvador, and Peru, that have helped regional labor ministries mainstream gender issues in public sector operations. And we're looking at doing more of this. We've seen some of the work that we've done in El Salvador, for example, result in the inauguration of a unit for gender equity in the Ministry of Labor in El Salvador. And in Barbados, we're looking at the early stages of a gender team being created in the Ministry of Labor. So we're very excited about what we're doing with the SIM, and we're grateful for the support of the International Labor Organization that has worked with us on this, as well as the Government of Canada, which has provided some support, and the US Department of State. With the PADF, of course, we do a lot in terms of natural disasters, and that continues, but we also have a partnership to support a horizontal cooperation activity between Mexico and Ecuador, as part of the Educa STEM program, which promotes science, technology, engineering, and math. And the two really that you may not have heard that much about, but are critical. It's what we're doing with YABT. We launched two programs that's spurring youth entrepreneurship, but we didn't try to do it ourselves because that would just be reinventing the wheel. We already have an affiliated partner that focuses specifically on this. So what we did in the area of social innovation and youth, we reached out to YABT, And they introduced this as a new category for their Talent and Innovation Competition of the Americas. And last year, this was spectacular. We had, after a very selective process, 707 teams from 20 countries participating for the Social Innovation Award. And what is this? The idea is to spur entrepreneurship and investment in the development of solutions to social problems that are effective, efficient, sustainable. The winner of the Social Innovation Competition this past year was a team from Chile. And they actually built this online anti-bullying platform called YUVO, which is intended to help confront the problem of bullying in schools. Recently, we helped them participate in a program in Asia. And actually, the last thing I heard a couple of weeks ago from the team leaders in Chile is that they now have a partner that's going to help them expand this program, an Asian partner, and they're very excited about this and what they might be able to do. And in December this past year, just a month ago, we joined with YABT again to follow up on the Culture Ministerial and fulfill one of the mandates coming out of that ministerial, which was the establishment of a Cultural Entrepreneurship Award, which will emphasize cultural entrepreneurship as an integral component of programming for competitiveness. And we know that the cultural industries, that's one of the major growth areas that we're seeing anywhere in the world right now. And we have, in the space of 2 weeks, when we sent out the announcement, applications were received from entrepreneurs in 9 countries in about 2 weeks: Colombia, Guatemala, Brazil, Argentina, Ecuador, Mexico, Haiti, Paraguay, and Panama. So there's interest. There is capacity. And so it's part of what we do, helping to provide that seed, to channel that entrepreneurship talent in the Americas, I think is very important. And then, of course, there's what we do with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which is basically working on the Protocol of San Salvador. But in addition to that, we also work with them in terms of what we're doing on the labor file. We are now inviting them to participate in our meetings of the Inter-American Labor Network to look at issues of discrimination and fair labor conditions and giving us their feedback. And as a matter of fact, the meeting that we had in Barbados in the fall of last year, we had one of the rapporteurs from the Inter-American Commission join us. And so we're very much looking forward to continuing with those collaborations. One final thing on collaboration and partnership, of course, is what we're doing with the Development Cooperation Fund. As I say, you know, we have learned to manage scarcity. And so we've come up with innovative management tools to optimize scarcity and still have impact. And within the context of the Development Cooperation Fund, I really want to thank delegations for completing this multi-year restructuring process of CIDI. I think the structure that we now have, as you've indicated, is well-defined. It has measurable objectives. The application process is much simpler. It focuses on having a multi-country kind of approach, which also helps us in terms of integrating programming and having wider impact. And we're very excited to see where we go. We're also happy to report that we closed out all of those backlog items that had been there. So we're ready to move forward with all of you to maintain the dynamism, not only in that area, but across the Secretariat and within the context of the political space of CIDI. At the end of the day, what we manage to achieve is really what you want us to achieve. What we aim for is what you tell us you want to reach. Our goals are your priorities. So thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing to working with all of you in 2015.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your very elaborate report and for highlighting CIDI's activities. This end-of-the-year report, along with the bi-monthly presentations to this Council and CIDI newsletter, are indeed the perfect complement for the substantive dialogue and the in-depth reports of the ministerial and high-level meetings. I would now like to open the floor for delegations that may wish to comment on the report of the Executive Secretary for Integral Development. Well, since there are no comments for there are. Ecuador, can I offer the floor to the delegation of Ecuador?
Muchas gracias, Presidenta, y muchas gracias en especial a la Secretaria CIDI Truss por este detallado informe de labores al que nos tiene muy acostumbrados. Este es un ejercicio de transparencia que mi delegación valora profundamente, Secretaria Truss. Nosotros apoyamos firmemente su trabajo y felicitamos todas las labores desempeñadas tanto por usted como por su valioso equipo, especialmente en la generación de lazos entre las oficinas de la OEA y todo los positivos resultados que esto ha generado. El Ecuador tiene un firme compromiso con el trabajo en materia de desarrollo y es lo que queremos reiterarle a usted el día de hoy. Gracias por este informe.
Thank you so much. I offer the floor to Canada.
Thank you, Chair. Our delegation would like to thank both the report presented by Ambassador Parsan as well as by the Executive Secretary, Ms. Truss. We appreciate the information, and we'll actually really look forward to the written version that the Executive Secretary mentioned that will be circulated. As we all know, the mandate at the General Assembly in 2014 provides for biannual written reports that talk about not only the accomplishments that the Secretariat has achieved, but their relationship to the mandates, as well as what areas the Secretariat has not been able to accomplish and been able to advance on within those mandates, so that we, member states, are able to use that input as a tool into the creation of new mandates and the resolutions for this coming season, this coming year of the General Assembly in 2015. Canada looks forward to continuing collectively with this group and with the Secretariat, strengthening the integral development pillar of the OAS as part of the broader ongoing strategic vision and management modernization exercises. We believe that these efforts are key to ensuring the continuing relevance and effectiveness in the OAS in this area. And to that end, would just reiterate the comment by our colleague from Ecuador that we particularly appreciate the efforts to coordinate with other parts of the inter-American system, other inter-American institutions, and other parts of the General Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. I recognize the delegation of the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States would like to thank Secretary Truss for her report, and we also like to thank her as well as the CIDI team for not only for her steady attentive leadership, but also for the willingness of the CIDI team to work with us as member states to respond to our needs and also our interests. We realized that 2014 was a very busy year, but it was also a productive year. So we thank Secretary Truss and the CIDI team, for all their hard work and efforts. We appreciate Secretary Truss because, she continues to demonstrate her conviction and willingness to make CIDI a more efficient and responsive body to CIDI to respond effectively to all of our needs. As the United States, we are a strong advocate and proponent of the development pillar and of CIDI's work. Excuse me. And as we have said before, development is the backbone of the OAS and vital to our efforts and success in all of the pillars. We look forward to working with CIDI and CIDI in 2015 to continue to effectively and efficiently strengthen the goals, our development goals, and advance, our objectives in the hemisphere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Delegation of Peru has requested the floor. Go ahead.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Agradecer a la señora Truss por el detallado informe que ha presentado. Mi delegación quiere hacer un reconocimiento al trabajo del CIDI, de la señora Truss y de todo el equipo que la acompaña y respaldarlo una vez más, estar comprometidos con ese e impulso que tiene para llevar adelante los mandatos que se adoptan en la Asamblea General y que nosotros seguimos con interés y respaldamos, insisto. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. In closing then, I would like to invite you to join me in thanking the Executive Secretary for her report and also for the work that she and her team have been conducting to keep our delegations informed. The oral report will be followed by the CIDI annual report, which is customarily being presented to this council prior to the General Assembly. So again, Madam Secretary, please accept our heartfelt thanks for all the work that you have and your team have been doing for the council. Our next item is the report of the 8th Americas Competitive Forum with the theme, The Human Imagination at Work, Driving Competitiveness, Powering Innovation. And meetings of the Inter-American Competitive Network, which was held in Trinidad and Tobago last October. To present the report of the 8th Competitiveness Forum and the meetings related thereto, I am pleased to once again offer the floor to Ambassador Parsan, the permanent representative of Trinidad and Tobago. Ambassador Parsan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I believe we'll actually be showing a video prior to my report submission, so thank you.
Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago.
I firmly believe that development in general cannot be sustainable if it is achieved in isolation.
Our main concern, therefore, is increasing the level of cooperation and trade facilitation between Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago in order to boost innovation and competitiveness.
With ongoing relationships solidified and the opportunity really to engage in work that can benefit the people of our countries.
Sustainable development is neither achievable nor possible without innovation.
The power to imagine and conceive ideas is universal, not limited by one's nationality, gender, religion, or level of education. It is an asset that every individual and every country of the Americas has, and must be nurtured and stimulated in order to create innovation and enhance competitiveness.
And together, we have seen our dialogue here and our cooperation through the ACF that it can yield tangible results, closer partnerships, and stronger economies.
Trinidad y Tobago hizo una excelente selección del tema central, la imaginación humana que impulsa la competitividad y potencia la innovación, constante fuente de desarrollo y crecimiento.
La Caraïbe, par exemple, doit commencer à utiliser au maximum le soleil qu'elle offre aux touristes comme source d'énergie propre pour faire marcher les climatiseurs et traiter les eaux usées des grands hôtels.
I believe that we have to harness both creativity and innovation to power the economies of our region.
I am delighted and honored to once again be able to join you for an annual meeting of the REAC, the Inter-American Competitive Network of Ministers and High-Level Authorities and Competitiveness Councils of the Americas.
As you will agree, the private sector can play a stronger role in driving innovation and competitiveness.
We look forward to continuing to work with you and welcome you to the REAC.
The closed-loop production cycle. The idea is that you don't have any waste in the production process. And so whatever you have, at the end of the day, you might have something that comes out at the end as waste. It can be recycled and used again.
It also serves as a practical example of the human imagination at work as we seek to utilize this technology to advance our competitiveness and find innovative ways of making local industries more efficient and environmentally sustainable.
To be the host for 2014, Guatemala and Mexico had also expressed an interest. And Guatemala and Mexico said, we will give Trinidad and Tobago the opportunity in 2014, and we, Guatemala, will go in 2015.
Guatemala is honored to assume this presidency. We will continue the dialogue on competitiveness of the Americas.
Well, having seen that video, I think I want to go home. But ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to give you the opportunity to lay this report before you on the 8th America's Competitiveness Forum, which was held in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago from October 8th to 10th, 2014. Over 935 persons were in attendance, including senior government officials and representatives of competitiveness authorities from the 34 member countries of the Organization of American States, private sector representatives, and multilateral and academic institutions, of which 306 were international and 629 local, which surpassed the initial total target audience of 800 attendees. The 8th ACF was organized by the OAS as the Technical Secretariat of the Inter-American Competitiveness Network, REAC, in collaboration with the host, the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. As distinguished member states would be aware, the REAC is a hemispheric mechanism comprising ministers, high-level authorities, councils, and institutions responsible for promoting competitiveness in the Americas. The mechanism promotes high-level dialogue on public policies, facilitates the exchange of experiences and best practices in the 10 general competitiveness principles, and carries out multiple initiatives to promote competitiveness and innovation at the national and subnational level. The pro-tempore chair of the REAC is the host country of the ACF and the REAC meetings. Therefore, Trinidad and Tobago had the honor of holding both positions during 2014. The theme of the 8th edition of the ACF was the human imagination at work, driving competitiveness, powering innovation. Recognizing that the creative and imaginative capacity within each human being serves as the source of competitiveness and innovation, the theme sought to explore the possibilities of further harnessing the creative power of the human imagination as a prerequisite for innovation, and the implications of this for educational and institutional reform. This year, a considerable amount of emphasis was placed on the critical role of the private sector in driving innovation. 6 critical areas emerged as the sub-themes of the ACF and formed the basis of panel discussions. These included energy competitiveness and innovation, financing business investment and growth, creativity, innovation, research and application, breakthrough innovations and the new generation, services industry as a driver of innovation, and finally, innovation in education. Keynote addresses were delivered by Dr. Bruno Lanvin, Executive Director for Global Indices, European Institute of Business Administration in Sedan, France. Dr. Howard Halper, Chair of Science, Technology and Innovation Council of Canada, also a distinguished professor at the University of Ottawa in Canada. Mr. Andy Stefanovich, Corporate Curator and Provocateur of the United States. Dr. Raul Cuero, President and Research Director of the International Park for Creativity in the United States. And Mr. Orlando Dovat Miller, President of Zono America, and Isidoro Hadara, Vice President of Zono America of Uruguay. Luncheon speakers included Mr. Charles Rivkin, Assistant Secretary of State for Economic and Business Affairs, U.S. Department of State, Mr. Robert Bermudez, Chairman of the Massey Group of Companies of Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Claudio Hidalgo, Chief Operating Officer for the Caribbean and Central America Group of Digicel, the Digicel Group. Day 1 of the ACF featured the first forum for partnership in the Americas, which was organized by Trinidad and Tobago's Ministry of Planning and Sustainable Development in collaboration with the Council for Competitiveness and Innovation and the Association of American Chambers of Commerce in Latin America, ACLA, under the theme, Tapping Imagination for Sustainable Business Innovation. The goal of the forum was to bring together business and government leaders from the Western Hemisphere to stimulate innovative thinking and to enhance public-private partnership. The introductory session was chaired by Mr. George Gabor Burt, Mastermind of Creativity, Innovation and Strategic Development, and author of Slingshot, a very famous book. Other presenters included Daniel Levine, one of the world's best-known trend experts, and an extreme entrepreneur, Mr. Peter Sage. Day 2 featured the REAC annual meeting, where the main results of the REAC under the leadership of Trinidad and Tobago were shared with member countries, in addition to the launching and presentation of the Signs of Competitiveness in the Americas Report 2014. You may have received a copy of the summary report of the Inter-American Competitiveness Network meetings that was circulated prior to this meeting, and of the 2014 Signs of Competitiveness in the Americas here at the meeting today. The 2014 Signs of Competitiveness in the Americas report provided an overview of the innovation landscape in the Americas through 27 research papers, articles, and interviews on the human imagination, innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity, addressing the current and future challenges for the Americas. It also featured 57 experiences shared by 15 countries, several supporting institutions, and other stakeholders. Among REAC member countries which contributed to the report were Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, El Salvador, Mexico, Panama, Peru, St. Lucia, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, the United States, and Uruguay. The experiences are grouped into 5 subsections: SMEs, innovation, entrepreneurship, development of human capital, regulatory framework, business climate, and trade. Fourthly, energy, and finally, institutions and programs. The largest number of experiences presented showcase policies and programs dealing with innovation, SME development, entrepreneurship, and development of the creative sector. The original text of the experiences reported by countries and institutions is available in full version of the 2014 Signs of Competitiveness in the Americas report, and you can find that at www.reactreport.org. In addition to the collection of these 57 best practices and lessons learned, the 2014 Signs report included a quick reference directory that provided an overview of all of the 150 experiences and cooperation efforts collected by REAC during the last 3 editions of the Signs of Competitiveness in the Americas report, 2012, 2013, and 2014. The report also included the intellectual contributions of members of the REAC Task Force on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, a diverse group of distinguished experts in innovation, entrepreneurship, and education from several countries of the Americas, who contributed their ideas and recommendations for the 8th Americas Competitiveness Forum, as well as the report on the results of the REAC ACF Community of Practice, a digital platform that convenes participants with a common academic and professional background to share ideas, find solutions, innovate, and foster joint effort through this internet-based space. The REAC Task Force on Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the REAC ACF Community of Practice are 2 legacy items that Trinidad and Tobago has passed on to the REAC. Special contributions for the report included articles from the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, of course, ECLAC, CAF, the Development Bank for Latin America, Compete Caribbean, and the International Development Research Center of Canada. Additionally, several keynote speakers of the 8th Competitiveness Forum shared their expertise in the Signs report as a result of a series of interviews that were carried out in collaboration with the OAS as REAC Technical Secretariat. The Signs report also presented the results obtained from REAC's activities that took place in 2014, including the organization of 2 Americas Competitiveness Exchanges on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, a high-level and hands-on program that showcased innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems in the United States and Mexico, and the main conclusions and recommendations of the REAC Working Group of Experts meeting on subnational competitiveness held in Montevideo, Uruguay on July 29th to 31st, 2014. During the REAC annual meetings, 3 institutions joined REAC as new partners: the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, the Basque Institute of Competitiveness, and the University of Texas at San Antonio. Additionally, Guatemala presented the 2015 work plan for REAC as pro tempore chair, and Buenos Aires was elected as host of the 2015 meeting of the REAC Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness. The government of Peru, through their National Council for Competitiveness, announced an initiative with Honduras to launch a professional competitiveness exchange program to strengthen competitiveness institutions in the Americas, and the United Nations Institute of Training and Research offered REAC members collaboration to take advantage of their e-learning platform. After the REAC annual meeting, the Americas Business Dialogue took place among the REAC government officials from the 34 member countries, and private sector stakeholders from over 24 countries. The Americas Business Dialogue served as a forum to present, socialize, and receive feedback on the preliminary outcomes of the ABD's working groups and to discuss the perspectives of the 8th Summit of the Americas to be held in Panama 2015. The ACF also provided the backdrop for the signing of a cooperation agreement between the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the Organization of American States for the implementation of a project aimed at introducing the use of biodegradable packaging materials. More specifically, the agreement aims to demonstrate the feasibility and applicability of the closed-loop cycle production, design, and manufacturing methodologies in the productive sectors as an innovative business development tool to improve Trinidad and Tobago's printing and packaging industry. The closed-loop cycle production method is based on taking existing or new products and redesigning them so that they are functional but environmentally friendly and can be reused into the manufacturing cycle after their useful life. The next annual meeting of the REAC and the 9th Americas Competitiveness Forum will be hosted by the government of Guatemala in 2015, and Mexico will host in 2016. In closing, colleagues, I would like to thank all the delegations for their valuable support during the tenure of Trinidad and Tobago's chair of REAC, for all your contributions to the 2014 Signs of Competitiveness report and participation of high-level officials and speakers from your various countries. I also wish to highlight the support of the Government of Canada to the OAS Secretariat, which was fundamental for the work carried out over the past 18 months. On a personal note, I wish the best to the government and people of Guatemala in hosting the 9th Americas Competitiveness Forum, and please be aware that the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the mission of the Embassy of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago here in Washington, D.C. stand ready to assist and pass on our own experiences and any hands-on help you may need in ensuring the continued success of the ACF in Guatemala. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador Parsan, for your report. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank and acknowledge the leadership of your Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development, His Excellency Bundratat Tewari. Not an easy name. Anyways, events and a rich dialogue like the one that was held in your country inspires programs, policies, partnerships, and opportunities of cooperation to all the member states of the OAS. Now, before offering the floor to delegations, I would like to invite the Secretariat to inform us about the initiatives and activities held as a result of the Trinidad and Tobago meeting and in preparation for the next forum in Guatemala later this year. To make this presentation, I'm now pleased to offer the floor to Mr. Cesar Parga from the Department of Economic Development. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and trying to be concise and to the point, I would like to start by thanking the Governor of Trinidad and Tobago, in particular Ambassador Parsan, Minister Tewari, and their teams. They have been tremendous in all your efforts, and over the last 18 months we have had the privilege of working with your country, with your leaders, and it's been a very successful experience, and we've been honored to do that over the year. And to the Government of Canada, the US Cooperation Program has been really valuable support to be able to deliver this assistance to Trinidad and to cooperate with all our colleagues and friends from the missions and the institutions that are part of REAC. And in terms of our colleagues here at the Secretariat, we already heard Secretary Truss mention the importance of collaborating and being a team under many constraints but many privileges of working together. So I would like to, in particular, thank our team in the Department of Economic Development, and in particular in the section of Competitiveness, Innovation, and Technology, for all the hard effort, the work, those of you who are here and those of you who cannot be with us today but are always working committedly to our success. And Madam Secretary Truss, Maurice, thank you for your leadership and guidance over the year. So having said that, I would concentrate on my main mission today, which is sharing with you some of the key elements and plans for next year. So I will switch to Spanish, if I may. Vamos a compartir con ustedes los detalles del plan de trabajo para el 2015 que ha facilitado Guatemala como presidencia de la REAC para el año que viene. En la preparación de esta reunión recibieron ustedes 3 links y documentos de los resultados de 2014 y lo que viene para el 2015. Recibieron el informe de la REAC con todas las actividades, resultados principalmente de las reuniones que se celebraron en Trinidad y Tobago, así como el plan de trabajo que ha sido ya presentado en Trinidad y Tobago, con los principales objetivos de trabajo que en resumen buscan realizar una continuidad de esfuerzos con todo lo que ha sido el liderazgo de los países que han sido sede y presidencia de la REAC y los trabajos que se han desarrollado por parte de la membresía, Estados miembros, organismos internacionales y contribuidores especiales como universidades, centros especializados de competitividad y otros actores importantes del sector privado en la REAC. También tienen la publicación de señales de competitividad, que valdría la pena mencionar. Ha sido un esfuerzo que se ha realizado in-house, es decir, con el trabajo del equipo de la presidencia de Trinidad y Tobago, las contribuciones de los Estados miembros de la OEA y de la REAC, así como los procesos de trabajo dentro de nuestro departamento y en CIDI. Así que muchas gracias a todos por este esfuerzo tan valioso. En el sentido de la continuidad del trabajo, el tema del 9º Foro de Competitividad de las Américas, que se celebrará en la ciudad de Guatemala en octubre del 2015, es confianza, la clave para las Américas, instituciones fuertes, más competitividad. Los trabajos que Guatemala ha diseñado desde octubre pasado tienen como objetivo principal generar una continuidad del diálogo político, es decir, el involucramiento de las altas autoridades de competitividad, desarrollo económico y su labor de compartir experiencias, desarrollar cooperación y encontrar mecanismos que permitan profundizar estos espacios de diálogo, pero también los resultados concretos y los productos de esta cooperación. En los últimos 5 años y especialmente con el liderazgo de los países que han sido sede y presidencias, se han creado 5 mecanismos fundamentales para generar este diálogo y reflejarlo en actividades puntuales. Entre ellos están la publicación de señales de competitividad, que permite dar visibilidad a los esfuerzos que se dan en cada uno de nuestros países a nivel de institucionalidad, como programas de desarrollo económico, cohesión social y capacidades a nivel de otros actores para generar empleos, generar oportunidades económicas y mejor calidad de vida. También el tema de la publicación ha permitido compilar hasta hoy día 150 experiencias de los países que permiten facilitar esta cooperación con ofertas concretas y puntuales al respecto. Entre los temas delegados que se han ido acumulando en los últimos procesos está el Grupo de Competitividad Subnacional, que es una asociación de expertos de varios de los países, así como de instituciones especializadas en competitividad, que permiten abordar el tema de competitividad desde el punto de vista de las comunidades, regiones, subregiones y ciudades, con experiencias muy concretas y experiencias de casos también prácticos que permiten complementar los esfuerzos de nuestros Estados miembros. También el ya mencionado intercambio sobre competitividad en innovación y emprendimiento ha sido un esfuerzo importante para llevar a la práctica el intercambio de experiencias con posibilidades de visitar y conocer los líderes tanto públicos como privados, que han generado asociaciones que han resultado en mayores empleos, mayores oportunidades económicas y de cohesión social en las regiones, tanto a nivel de ciudades como en regiones rurales, con alta tecnología o bien con experiencias exitosas de adaptación a los cambios que se dan con la globalización y la tecnología. En ese sentido, valdría mencionar que en la reunión de Trinidad y Tobago, en la reunión de la RIAC, se ha institucionalizado ya este mecanismo y se celebrará en los próximos meses un tercer intercambio siguiendo a los esfuerzos que se hicieron en Estados Unidos y México el año pasado. El tercer intercambio con el apoyo de la misión de los Estados Unidos ante la OEA, así como el Departamento de Comercio de los Estados Unidos y la Presidencia de Guatemala, con la visión del tema institucional para este año, estarán comunicando a ustedes muy pronto la realización de un tercer intercambio de competitividad en los temas de innovación y emprendimiento en los estados de Wisconsin, Minnesota e Illinois, en la ciudad de Chicago en particular, que se celebraría en el mes de abril a partir de la continuidad con el tema de pymes también y el diálogo regional sobre altas autoridades que se celebraría en ese mes de abril acá en la ciudad de Washington. Destacaría también otro legado de Trinidad y Tobago que ha quedado como resultado del foro de competitividad celebrado en octubre pasado, y es la comunidad de prácticas, que es una plataforma digital que permite facilitar el diálogo no solo entre las altas autoridades de competitividad y sus equipos técnicos, sino también con la sociedad civil y personas interesadas en los temas relacionados a la competitividad y los 10 principios de competitividad que han sido establecidos desde República Dominicana. Así que, en resumen, el trabajo que Guatemala estará desarrollando se basa en las experiencias, capacidades que se han ido generando para facilitar y profundizar la cooperación en los últimos 4 años y construyen con una temática relacionada a instituciones, generación de confianza y con un énfasis especial que Guatemala estará realizando en incluir la voz de la sociedad civil y la voz de las actividades de participación ciudadana en los procesos de competitividad. Vamos a mencionar muy brevemente algunas de las actividades que se tienen planteadas para el próximo año, además del diálogo de competitividad que se dará en el foro del mes de octubre, que incluirá la reunión de altas autoridades, así como los talleres regionales para el Caribe y de autoridades de Centroamérica. Tienen en el mes de abril este tercer intercambio de competitividad a celebrarse en los Estados Unidos, la realización del Comité de Gestión de la RIAC, que es el grupo de 9 países, muchos de ellos que han sido las sedes pasadas y que serán sedes futuras del foro, para coordinar los trabajos y resultados establecidos para el mes de octubre, con la coordinación de Guatemala y las vicepresidencias de Trinidad y Tobago y de México. Además de la reunión anual de la RIAC, uno de los productos fundamentales será la preparación del informe de señales de competitividad 2015 alrededor de la temática de este foro, y en ese sentido Guatemala estará trabajando con todos los Estados miembros y los actores de la RIAC para definir el contenido y alcance de esta publicación, que daría continuidad también al intercambio de experiencias y a la profundización de la cooperación entre los Estados miembros de la OEA. Además de la reunión especializada del Grupo de Competitividad Subnacional, Guatemala ha buscado también generar un espacio muy definido sobre la territorialidad de la competitividad, es decir, cómo las ciudades y la competitividad se genera desde las comunidades, y aprendizaje, replicabilidad y capacidad de compartir experiencias a ese nivel. Así que uno de los temas fundamentales que verán destacados en el plan de trabajo es también el aspecto territorial y el aspecto de participación de las comunidades en las definiciones de prioridades y aplicación de la competitividad. Con esto, señora Presidenta, quisiera concluir agradeciendo la oportunidad de compartir esta visión de Guatemala reflejada en su plan de trabajo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Mr. Farga, for your report. I would now like to offer the floor to delegations who may wish to comment on the item. I offer the floor to the United States of America. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to you and to all. First of all, I would like to congratulate the government of Trinidad and Tobago through Ambassador Parsan and Minister Tawari for the successful outcome of the 8th ACF. Second, a warm thank you specifically to Ambassador Parsan for all his support to the U.S. delegation as we prepared for the ACF and during the activities in Port of Spain. Thank you very much. 3, we look forward to the 9th ACF to be held in Guatemala this fall. And to our neighbors here, please, feel free to reach out to us with any questions. I'm sure that that's already occurring, but to the extent that the mission can be helpful, be assured that we are ready to assist. And lastly, we'd like to echo the words, the remarks made by Cesar Parga to reiterate that the U.S. government, through the Department of Commerce and Department of State, specifically through the U.S. mission, in collaboration with the OAS, of course, they're preparing for the Third America's Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is a key outcome of the ACF/REAC. And as you know, I've heard a little bit more about today. It's a high-level visit and information exchange that will take place from April 19 through the 24th. That should be right after our high-level SME meeting in the Midwest region of the U.S., the United States. And the exchange will showcase advanced technology centers, innovation hubs, and public-private partnerships and investment in the states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. So the applications and further details are forthcoming, but we would appreciate everybody's assistance in ensuring wide circulation to your respective private and public sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Delegate of the U.S. I recognize Canada. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And our delegation would like to thank Ambassador Parsan as well as Cesar Parga for these oral reports. Canada was very pleased to attend the 8th America's Competitiveness Forum hosted in by Trinidad and Tobago last October. We believe this important event contributed directly to one of the main goals of Canada's engagement in the Americas, which is namely to increase mutual economic opportunity. Canada was also pleased to support the important work of the REAC, which has been explained here today as part of the broader Canada-OAS cooperation plan. And just finally, our delegation would want to know if perhaps the presentations that were shared here could be circulated so we could share those with our capitals. That'd be very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate from Canada. My screen is on mute. Which is the next speaker? Guatemala. Can I offer the floor to Guatemala?
Sí, gracias, Presidenta. Primero, agradecer al embajador Parsan por su gentil ofrecimiento de asistencia, de apoyo a Guatemala en los preparativos de organización del 9º Foro de Competitividad de las Américas. Creo que aceptamos gentilmente dicho ofrecimiento, tomando en cuenta que su experiencia y su energía seguro nos van a ayudar a organizar este foro y que este sea igual de exitoso como el efectuado en Trinidad y Tobago el año pasado. No me queda mucho que agregar a lo que ya se explicó sobre el plan de trabajo que presentó Guatemala, el documento que ya está distribuido desde hace algún tiempo. Sin embargo, solamente reiterarles que los objetivos, claro, que persigue Guatemala con el 9º Foro de Competitividad es formular propuestas de temas relevantes para que aquellas personas que formulan políticas públicas, para aquellos ciudadanos o inversionistas que están interesados en invertir en nuestros países, puedan tener una suficiente plataforma de análisis y de intercambio de experiencias sobre cómo podemos nosotros contar con instituciones más fuertes, instituciones públicas fuertes, que nos sean capaces de pavimentar el camino hacia países con mayores posibilidades de inversión pública directa. Muchas gracias.
I offer the floor to the delegation of Jamaica.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Chair, as it is the first time that my delegation is taking the floor since you took up the chairmanship of this body, just let me congratulate you on assuming the chair of CIDI and assure you of our full support during your tenure. To our outgoing chair, Ambassador Parson of Trinidad and Tobago, our sincere thanks for your dedicated stewardship of the CIDI. Chair, firstly, let me thank Ambassador Parson again for his informative report on the 8th REAC, which was hosted by his country in October last year so successfully. Thank also Guatemala for offering to host the 9th ACF. Madam Chair, my delegation has requested the floor to inform the CIDI of a recent development in the area of competitiveness. Last Friday, the 23rd of January 2015, Jamaica launched the Small Business Development Center, the SBDC, which is a model project undertaken by the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce of Jamaica in partnership with the Caribbean Export Development Agency and the University of Texas, San Antonio. This is part of a wider OAS initiative which began in 2012 in the region. As stated by the Honorable Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce of Jamaica, the SBDC model has a structured framework which promotes the competitiveness and development of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, which will address some of the deficiencies in existing programs. The Small Business Development Center is being implemented in Jamaica with the integral involvement of the public and private sector, as well as academia. My delegation thanks the Secretariat of Integral Development of the OAS for the assistance provided to my country for enhancing the growth of its small and medium-sized enterprises. The OAS CIDI has been very supportive and encouraging in its dedication to promoting competitiveness as one of the areas of focus of CIDI. Jamaica also commends the government of the United States of America for its generous support of this worthwhile initiative, especially in providing the requisite expertise to make this initiative such a success. We are happy to make further progress in this area of competitiveness and business development with all these our development partners. Jamaica fully supports and will continue to support the work of CIDI in this very important area of small business growth and empowerment, which can only further contribute to the development of our country and the region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. In closing, I would then like to propose to this council, firstly, to thank and congratulate the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and especially its Ministry of Planning and Sustainable Development, for the success of the 8th America's Competitiveness Forum and the meetings of the Inter-American Competitive Network REAC, as well as the oral report which has been presented here today. Secondly, to take note and to thank the government of Guatemala for offering to host the next meeting of the ACF. Thirdly, to thank the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development for the report and the work done to implement the various mandates. And fourthly, that all reports will be distributed in due course by the Secretariat. I would like to ask the delegations if there is agreement with these proposals. Well, Well, since there are no more requests for the floor, it is so agreed. Agreed. Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the next item relates to the upcoming Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism and the second programming cycle of the Hemispheric Fund for Tourism. The inclusion of these items in today's agenda were requested by the delegations of Peru and Honduras respectively. For the convocation of the next Congress of Ministers of Tourism, I am now pleased to offer the floor to the delegation of Peru, and I would like to request the delegate of Peru to brief us on this. You have the floor, sir.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Sí, una vez más, expresarle a la sala mi satisfacción por estar nuevamente en el CIDI, aunque de manera circunstancial, reemplazando a mi colega que tiene la responsabilidad de este tema, Samuel Ascayay, a quien evoco con sana envidia porque está ahorita disfrutando del verano limeño. Pero justamente para, como ustedes saben, presentar el proyecto de resolución de convocatoria al 23 Congreso Interamericano de Ministros y Altas Autoridades de Turismo. En mi delegación circuló dos notas dando cuenta del ofrecimiento, la formalización del ofrecimiento de mi gobierno para ser sede de esta reunión y en una segunda nota precisando que se proponía que esta reunión se realizara los días 3 y 4 de septiembre del año en curso en Lima. El proyecto de resolución fue circulado, entiendo que ya ha sido revisado por las delegaciones y en todo caso agradezco de antemano el respaldo que puedan dar a esta propuesta. Muchas gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Delegate of Peru. I would like to thank you, of course, for your presentation and for your offer to host the next meeting of ministers in Peru. The topic which has been proposed for this meeting is community-based rural tourism, and it is indeed timely and interesting, and will certainly build on the discussions of the 22nd Congress, which was held in Barbados and which focused on competitiveness and sustainability of tourism destinations. It will also provide the platform for our tourism ministers to discuss the many ways in which community and rural-based tourism activities can generate a range of economic and social benefits to undeserved areas, which while expanding the reach of the tourism sector in our countries. I would like to submit for your consideration the draft resolution which the delegation of Peru has presented to contain, which has been contained in document CIDI/Doc 13515. I would like to invite delegations whether they have comments on the draft resolution which has been presented by Peru. Well, if there are no comments, we will adopt the resolution, and it is so approved. Okay. I would like to continue now with the consideration of the second programming cycle of the Hemispheric Fund for Tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may recall, the voluntary fund was created by the Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism in El Salvador in 2011. The purpose of this fund is that of financing cooperation among ministries and national authorities for tourism in order to support those communities in the member states in situations of extreme poverty where, despite tourism potential in their surrounding areas, are unable to fully actualize conditions for development. The fund is governed by its own statutes and regulations. The delegation of Honduras, in its capacity as chair of the Inter-American Committee on Tourism, has requested for the inclusion of this topic so that CIDI may consider the next programming cycle scheduled for this fund. For the presentation on this matter, I am pleased to offer the floor now to the delegate of Honduras. Delegate of Honduras, can I offer you the floor?
Muchas gracias, señora Presidente. A nombre del licenciado Emilio Silvestre, director del Instituto Hondureño de Turismo y presidente de la Comisión Interamericana de Turismo, CITUR, me es grato informarles que el Fondo Hemisférico de Turismo tiene en la actualidad un saldo de $141,486. Cabe mencionar que 2 países ya han hecho su contribución respectiva para el segundo ciclo de programación. En ese sentido, y al tener en cuenta que los ministros y altas autoridades de turismo en su última reunión encomendaron a la CITUR continuar con los preparativos para el segundo ciclo de programación del Fondo Hemisférico de Turismo, en cumplimiento de este mandato se realizaron consultas con las autoridades nacionales de turismo de Barbados, Ecuador, Perú y Honduras, en su calidad de autoridades de la CITUR y de la Troika del Congreso, y definieron una propuesta de calendario para el segundo ciclo de programación del Fondo Hemisférico de Turismo, del cual fue previamente circulado por la Secretaría. Asimismo, y en vista de que la CITUR no tendrá una reunión formal en el futuro cercano para considerar esta propuesta, y en aras de no dilatar su aprobación, se eleva este calendario al Consejo Interamericano para el Desarrollo Integral, en calidad de órgano superior de la CITUR, para su respectiva aprobación y de esta manera dar inicio al segundo ciclo de programación. Se reitera a los miembros para poder presentar proyectos se debe efectuar una contribución voluntaria al segundo ciclo de programación del Fondo Hemisférico de Turismo, de acuerdo al artículo 1.1 del reglamento para la presentación de proyectos, y que dice: cada miembro podrá presentar un máximo de 2 proyectos por ciclo de programación y deberá haber hecho efectiva su contribución al Fondo Hemisférico de Turismo en el periodo en el que se presente la solicitud. Se agradece a los miembros poder aprobar este calendario si no tienen ningún inconveniente. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
I thank the delegation of Honduras for its presentation, and as requested, I submit for your consideration the proposed schedule for the second programming cycle of the Hemispheric Fund for Tourism, as presented by the delegations of Honduras, Ecuador, Barbados, and Peru, authorities of the Inter-American Committee of Tourism. I noticed that Jamaica has requested the floor. Can I offer the floor to the delegate of Jamaica?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my delegation has a query that we would like to have clarified in terms of the draft schedule that has been presented to us. It is noted that it indicates the date of January the 15th for invitations to be sent to member states to make voluntary contributions. However, since we are only now being asked to approve this schedule, I would like to find out if it is that these dates would be adjusted to reflect what we are doing here today, or is it that the invitations have already been sent out with the understanding that it would be agreed to by the CIDI today? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jamaica. I would like to ask the Secretariat to respond to your inquiry. You have the floor, sir.
Chair, just to thank the delegate of Jamaica for the query, but just to say that I think the delegate may be referring to an earlier draft of this draft schedule. I think the initial draft may have been in circulation when we were planning to have this meeting before the end of last year, and we had to revise the date. So the actual new date for the submission would be February 16 rather than January, as January as the delegate had suggested. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Jamaica, has your question been answered?
Yes, thank you, Chair. However, what is reflected on the screen for delegations is in fact the old version, which has January 15th as a startup date. So that was what we were referring to. But I just received a copy of the adjusted dates, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jamaica. We recognize that it was the old version that has been posted, but I guess with the clarification that has been provided by the Secretariat, we are now ready then to adopt the draft resolution. If there are no other comments, the resolution is approved. Thank you. In closing this item, I would like to request that the Department of Economic Development, the Technical Secretariat for the Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism keep this council informed of the preparations for the ministerial meeting and on the results of the programming cycle of the fund. Ladies and gentlemen, now with this we have completed consideration of the items on our agenda today. I would like to ask delegations if there are any other matters that they might wish to bring to the attention of the council. And I noticed that Guatemala has requested the floor, so I'm pleased to offer the floor to Guatemala. Go ahead, sir.
Gracias, Presidenta. Seré breve. Mi delegación quisiera aprovechar esta reunión del CIDI para recordar a las distinguidas delegaciones que la reunión preparatoria de la cuarta reunión de ministros y altas autoridades de ciencia y tecnología se va a llevar a cabo aquí en la sede de la OEA, en Washington, del 12 al 13 de febrero de 2015. Nosotros estaremos en breve, más bien la Secretaría en breve estará publicando el proyecto de calendario, el cual incluye importantes sugerencias sobre los documentos de trabajo. Entendemos también que esos documentos de trabajo serán distribuidos a la brevedad posible y la intención es que las delegaciones, al tener esos documentos en su poder, puedan hacer consultas a sus capitales y podamos tener esos dos días de trabajo de la de la reunión preparatoria completamente dedicados al estudio del temario, de las propuestas de documentos de trabajo que van a circularse. Y al mismo tiempo, aprovechando que está aquí la Secretaria Ejecutiva para el Desarrollo Integral, de solicitarle amablemente y la invitación oficial será así girada, pueda participar en esta reunión preparatoria el 12 y el 13 de febrero. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you so much, Delegate of Guatemala. Can I offer the floor to anyone from the Secretariat to clarify some of the issues that have been raised?
Sí, gracias, señora presidenta. Las invitaciones para esta reunión preparatoria salieron desde diciembre y esperamos poder distribuir los documentos, por lo menos el calendario esta semana y a principios de la semana entrante el proyecto de plan de acción de Guatemala que la delegación, el país anfitrión, estará proponiendo a consideración de los Estados miembros. Gracias.
Thank you so much. The delegate of Honduras, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Pido disculpas a usted y a la sala. Yo sé que a estas horas ya el estómago llora un poco. Pero quería retornar al tema del punto anterior solamente para agradecerle a usted y a los Estados miembros por dar la aprobación del calendario y de esta forma pues ya comenzaríamos ya de lleno con nuestro calendario. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. Before closing, I would also like to thank the delegations for their best wishes for the assumption of Suriname as chair of CIDI. And as indicated earlier, we will try to further consolidate the work of CIDI. Now, there are no other items to be considered. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a great lunch. Bye.